I know you just lost your job, but can I have your job? Yeah, right.
Welcome. You are entering into a strange dimension. A dimension where narratives from across space and time come together. Narratives that could have, might have, or should have been all exist here in one space. This is Cinemaster's Ultimate Timeline.
Hello and welcome to Cinemasters. This is the show where we watch movies and repitch them. I am Nate Draper, and I am joined as always by my very good friend Andrew DeYoung.
Yo, what up? You've been away the last little while, actually.
Well, for the last month, you mean?
Well, I guess you haven't really been away. Like, you've been around. It's just been
I've been away. Yeah, from my normal environment.
Yeah, but I did a whole series with Alyssa, and so I guess I was like, oh yeah, you haven't been on Cinemasters in a while, but that's my fault, not yours.
I've been replaced.
No. Alyssa has this whole thing about young adult fiction, right? She's like really into it. Mm-hmm. So am I, for that matter. But like, we just get, whenever I do Cinemasters with her, we tend to like lean in that direction, whereas you and I tend to lean more towards like obscure science fiction.
Yeah, and this week is no exception to that. With our pick this week is the movie Simone from 2002.
Yeah, 2002.
I think, or S1M0NE.
Yeah, Sim
is
1.
how it's spelled.
Yeah. But I think it's supposed to be pronounced like the character Simone.
Yeah, that's sort of what I think. It's just it's so obscure. Like I actually never heard of this movie. You're the one who recommended it. Basically, just a quick recap. It's basically Al Pacino plays a film director who creates this artificial actress who becomes more real and better than actual performers.
Yeah.
It actually reminded me a lot of this film with Robin Wright called The Congress.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of it.
No,
this
I
movie
haven't.
basically, as I was watching it, I was really scratching my head, trying to figure out what my pitch would be. And I was going through the whole movie. I was like, you know what? I might just pretend. I might just steal the Congress and not say anything and see if anybody catches me. I didn't do that though. But The Congress is a very interesting movie. It deals with a lot of the same, at least concepts in terms of technology, but I think just it takes it. The Congress is more recent, so there's obviously been a lot more advancement in technology, so it's a bit more up to date that way. But it does deal with the issue of virtual performances.
Yeah.
What does that do for movies? But it goes into it in a lot more depth, and it takes it to its ultimate conclusion in this very trippy, it goes from live action to 2D animation.
Oh, that's really interesting.
It's very interesting and very bizarre. I actually think we should do a Cinemasters episode on it because I don't think it's a perfect movie.
Okay.
But I still appreciate what it's doing.
Of course.
I think it's actually quite artful in its own way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this movie reminded me a lot of that.
That's really interesting because this movie had the same effect on me, but obviously not with The Congress because I've never seen it. To me, it had I felt like I was watching a shitty episode of The Black Mirror.
Oh, funny. Yeah, actually.
I'm pretty sure, especially at the end. The end, I was like, whoa, like where they decided to go into politics.
Yeah.
With like the fake Simone decides to go in. I was like, I'm pretty sure there's a Black Mirror episode where exactly that happens, where there's like a fake cartoon that goes into politics at the end. I don't know. I'm not super familiar with Black Mirror, but the entire time I was like, this feels like a really shitty episode of Black Mirror.
I think there is, and I think that's one of the episodes I haven't seen, actually. There's like an entire season of Black Mirror where I've missed some episodes.
Okay, yeah.
It could be that one.
Yeah. But
that does sound familiar. Anyway.
This movie, and I say like really shitty episode of the Black Mirror because I guess we're there, goods and bads. I thought this movie was kind of really, I don't want to say bad because it wasn't bad. Like there was some really cool ideas, but the execution was so flawed in a lot of ways. So at the beginning of this movie, we keep seeing Victor Taransky, that's Al Pacino's character, Victor Taransky's movies, and they're all called things like Eternity Forever or Sunset to Sunrise. And like every time you see them, like the character Simone is like on screen, or even Nicola when she's like, that's Winona Ryder's character, when she's like in the movie at the beginning, they're all like, they seem to be like sort of self-indulgent art films. And I thought the movie was going to try and say something about like what it means when you're only working for the art. Like it seemed to me like that was what it was thematically going for. Like, of course we want movies to be art, but and I'm not saying that movies are commodified or whatever they are. I'm just saying like when you start to lose yourself in the art without having any like knowledge of the outside world, then it becomes like self-indulgent bullshit. Right? And I felt like, oh, the movie's gonna say something where like eventually he has this this artificial woman, this actress who everyone is obsessed with, but they're only obsessed with her. They're not obsessed with his movies because his movies are garbage. But she's always like this beautiful, glamorous person that he has in the movies. I thought that's where the movie was gonna go and be like, oh yeah, okay, like self-indulgent art isn't really art because you're not doing it with a purpose of saying anything. You're just doing it to make art, which is saying something in itself. But you know, there's a line. You don't want to be accused of like, like, am I just being heady for the sake of being heady, or am I saying something with my art? Right?
Yeah.
And then this movie didn't do that at all. I almost felt like I was watching, like the more I watched this movie, the more it felt like it was becoming the self-indulgent bullshit that I thought it was trying to parody.
Well, yeah. See, at one point, I did think like, wait, okay, is this movie actually really smart?
Yeah,
and I'm just not
in a
getting
mistaken way. This movie's actually super smart.
Yeah, it's sort of like it tried to be smart in one way, but completely missed and ended up being smart in a completely different way.
I would still wonder that. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, because I didn't feel, because there were parts of it where I felt the same way, and not necessarily that I was drawing on the same themes, although I certainly saw what you mentioned in there. It was more that notion that I'm watching something and I'm going, okay, there's clearly, whoever sat down at the keyboard and was typing this clearly had something in mind. They were clearly trying to put something on screen that was emblematic of something or had some sort of metaphor to it. Like, I can see that thinking is there.
Yeah.
But somehow it's just not clicking. It's just not translating itself into something that I want to watch. Is really what it came down to for me. Yeah.
Yeah. I watched the whole thing, but there
ahead.
was times where I thought the movie started to feel like when the press gets involved, I'm like, this is starting to feel like it's a 80s camp movie. You know what I mean? Where they're like, we're like, oh, our main character has to hide this secret, and everyone's trying to like rush around to figure out what his secret is. I was like, I guess I often was trying to ask myself, this movie felt like was it about Simone? Was it about Victor's relationship with Simone? Was it about Victor? Was Simone supposed to be like this like inverted mirror of Victor, as though like the more he tries to work exclusively on his art, the more he gets caught up in the life of an actor, because he's playing Simone, right? Simone is his work, right? And so the more he invests in his movies, the more people love Simone, and the more he winds up investing his time into the thing that he didn't want to. He wanted it to be about the art, and he winds up creating an actor that he has to act as. But then the movie, like, I don't know, like Simone sort of takes on this life of her own, but not in an artificial intelligence way, in like a phenomenological way, not like as a phenomenon, not a metaphysical phenomenology. Like she becomes like a phenomenon, like a social being in a kind of way, and that's really interesting. Like I mean, I could do a whole thing about actor network theory on her not being real, but there's far more interesting cases of non-real entities being in the real world. The biggest problem I think I have with this movie is, what would stop Victor from just saying Simone isn't real?
Yeah, Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know if you're aware of this, but there is a Japanese figure called Hatsune Miku.
Okay.
You've probably seen her because she's very
The
popular.
Bitcoin guy?
No.
Oh,
Hatsune Miku
no.
is a female anime character that isn't real. She doesn't exist in the physical sense, right?
Okay.
But Hatsune Miku is a pop star. She's a digital pop
interesting.
star. And artists from around the world use a Vocaloid machine or a synthesizer to basically give her vocals and then create songs for her. And she's performed live, and yet she isn't quote unquote real. So what is Hatsune Miku? But the knowledge of her not being real is entirely open. Nobody has ever said Hatsune Miku is an actual thing. Now, part of that is because she also has like a cartoon aesthetic. She is an anime character drawn in the manga style of modern Japanese manga, right? So, but nobody, like, to me, it's like, yo, if you can do this, this should be more of a question of what does this mean in terms of the, in terms of what actors can do. If we can replicate the emotionality of an actor, and clearly to a better degree based on how everyone is obsessed with Simone's acting, then what does this mean for acting as an art form? Is it going to move over to an artificial art form? What does this mean for the art of movie making? Far more than about Victor Turansky's, you know, this movie could have been way smarter if it had gotten rid of its main conceit. There's no point in hiding her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I just for my own sake, Satoshi Nakamoto. That's the when you said
Bitcoin.
not real.
Okay, yeah.
The Bitcoin guy, yeah. But again, it's like, who is Satoshi Nakamoto?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a tangent. But yes, I felt the same way watching the movie. I totally felt the same way.
Yeah.
Where I went, why? Yeah, why is this need? Why is there this need to keep it a secret? And why hasn't anybody figured it out yet?
Yeah, the
Why
fact that
has
nobody
not
figured
one
it out
person-
doesn't make sense to me. Like, there's no way you could keep a secret like
Yeah.
that. But to me, that makes the movie more unbelievable. But also, like, again, like, I'll say it again, like, everyone knows Hatsune Miku isn't real, and yet she's opened for Lady Gaga. Like, she plays concerts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, this, I mean, it's not as big here, but she's quite big in Japan, obviously, and also in South America. Like, very popular, very cool stuff, both, like, sociologically, anthropologically, musicologically, metaphysically, like, huge questions to be asked about the nature of art in all of those fields. When you deal with something like Hatsune Miku, that could have been what this movie was about. And instead we get this, I don't know, this sort of like pedantic, banal story about this director trying to get his life back on track.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I had a hard time also suspending my disbelief. In fact, that was a note I made. I wrote that exactly. Had a hard time suspending my disbelief.
Yeah.
Because there was a certain point in the movie where you go, okay, this just is gone from absurd to completely unbelievable on so many levels. Like, yeah, I feel like tonally it maybe would have worked if it was closer to something like a movie like Synecdoche, New York.
So like very bizarre and dark.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like if they were to have, like, tonally, that could have worked if it was closer to something like a Synecdoche, New York, where, you know, even the whole style of it is much more absurd. Maybe, yeah, because I wondered too if it was just a case of, could it have been like a stylistic thing? There were certainly some reviews I read that suggested that, and that was one thing I speculated on. But anyway, sorry, I don't know if you had any more else you wanted to say on the what worked or what didn't work.
I did think there was some things that really did work. There's sort of this musical theme, this very pleasant major kind of harmony that occurs whenever Victor is like fooling around with the Simone Simulation 1 program, especially the first time. It's this really, really nice theme. So the composer is Carter Burwell. He's worked with Klaus Bedelt and Hans Zimmer before, and I gotta say, like, I was really like, oh, this theme. The rest of the movie was scored well. Like, it never brought me out. But that theme in particular, I was like, oh, I really like this. The way this feels, like, it feels really cool. Like as though somebody's having an epiphany, but like in a musical way. Like, what would an epiphany sound like if it was harmonic? And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like this revelatory moment sort of brought into harmony. Really cool. Really neat. That's the best thing I have to say about this movie.
Wow. Yeah. Carter Burwell is a great composer.
Yeah. I just
also did a lot of music for the Coen Brothers movies.
I did think that there was also, he's worked with the Coen Brothers a lot. I did think that there was also this, that the way the world sort of grabs onto this idea of Simone, this, mysterious, beautiful, wonderful celebrity it felt, frenzied, but not unbelievable. Like, we've seen that kind of thing happen before with the Beatles and Franz Liszt and lots of other pop stars. I mean, there's a reason they call it Bieber fever, right? Justin Bieber. But so I did feel like that was real. It just I don't know enough about the sociology behind what happens when people go through that kind of mania. Because there was one time where they were projecting one of her movies on the side of the frickin' pyramids of Giza.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, would that really happen? Like, I mean, I guess that like Simone-mania would be a thing, but I wonder just like how far would that go?
Well, there's this feeling that it's like the entire world and everybody and their dog is wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no one who disagrees that Simone is like this model of perfection. It's like the entire planet is on board with the cult of Simone.
I feel like somewhere out there must have been some dude, like, I'm thinking very much you and I, who would have been like, who gives a fuck?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
Whether or not she's real or like, I don't even care whether or not she's real. Like, if she wants to be left, like, if I was under the delusion because nobody else knew, and they were just like, she wants to be left alone, I'd be like, who gives a fuck? Like, leave the woman alone. Like, it doesn't matter whether she's real or not. It like what matters is her movie's good? Great. Like, is she happy? Great. Because, if somebody's like, oh, this person puts out great movies, but I'm thinking, of course, of the tragic loss of Heath Ledger.
Right.
Like, Heath Ledger worked so hard and made an amazing movie with the Joker, with the Dark Knight, and the Joker, right? And people would say, like, well, you don't care if Heath Ledger. No, I care if Heath Ledger's unhappy, right? But his acting was great, and I don't want people to hurt themselves. But like, when it comes to being happy, like, if you're happy and you're healthy, then I don't care. Like, I don't really care about celebrities' lives.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we would both be in that camp there.
It doesn't make.
And that was one of the other things that I bumped on with this movie too. Is it was like, and that's where I said it should go. For it to have worked, it needed to almost just keep going there to an extreme and embrace the
absurdity.
How strange that is. Because it almost seemed to make it justifiably real in one sense through the ex-wife character.
Yeah.
And I felt like. Catherine Keener plays his ex-wife.
Elaine is her name.
Okay, thank you. I don't have the list here, but yeah, it was one of those cases where it felt like, and Evan Rachel Wood, who played
Lainey,
who played their daughter, also, like, it felt like they were there to kind of make it almost like it could be a real thing. Yeah. But it was just way too ridiculous.
I almost wonder if
which is why I wasn't able to suspend my disbelief.
I almost wonder if they should have, like, deified her. Mm-hmm. Like, to the point where she becomes so much of this, like, social phenomenon and ingrained in the zeitgeist that they start to, like, actually view her as a kind of goddess. Mm-hmm. Like, and not just, like, in the celebrity sense, but, like, actually start to worship her. Like, just go to that level and just be like, whoa.
You know, one film that actually does do that. There's a movie called. Oh, I wish I could remember what it was called. I think it's called Antiviral. It's directed by David Cronenberg's son, Brandon Cronenberg. And I remember actually at the very end of this movie, there's a scene where like it has something to do with a celebrity, and this guy is like obsessed with the celebrity, but she's like dying and she's an iron lung, but they're able to actually like harvest her. It gets very creepy, but they're able to like harvest her skin and feed it to people. Oh boy. But it's sort of like playing on that whole idea of communion. Yeah. But it's playing on that idea of communion.
Exactly.
But again, it's like it takes it just to an absolute extreme. And in the case of that movie, it kind of worked.
Yeah.
Like you got the idea of what they were going
for. Well, like at the end,
it landed much better than this one.
At the end, when he could have revealed, like just as a quick pitch, he could have revealed that Simone was actually artificial. And instead of everyone being like, oh my God, like I can't believe it, it becomes like this whole thing where like now you can download your own Simone right onto your home computer, and you too can like have a personal relationship with your very own Simone. You know what I mean? So like where it becomes like, you know, here's your floppy disk because it's the early 2000s. Here's your floppy disk. Here's your CD, and you can like almost like Her, where he has a relationship with his OS. It's like a personal artificial intelligence. Yeah. Except instead, it's like you can program your own Simone to be the relationship you want with her, and all of a sudden, everyone starts having a personal relationship with their own very own Simone, who's like I don't know. It's just like now you can carry her around with you. I don't know. I think the world would have been down with that.
Yeah, I mean that would have been one direction. Yeah, it's almost like there's too many things. It can't pick a direction to go in, and that's why it feels.
This movie has
scattered.
so many ideas, and so like, is this again? I'll say it like, is this about Simone? Is it supposed to be about the movie industry? Is it supposed to be about art? Is it supposed to be about like watching Victor Taransky as like a character piece? Because sometimes it felt that way. He would just like soliloquy at the screen about the nature of movies and art, and I'd be like, back to this whole self-indulgent bullshit thing. Like I don't understand what I'm supposed to be watching. Is this a character piece that Al Pacino is trying to put out about Victor Taransky that just happens to have this artificial being in it? Because that might be interesting too. Because there's a couple points there where he like argues with himself using Simone, and I was like, yo, this could almost be like. Not as comedic as Gollum, but literally have him argue with himself as Simone, where we know he's saying those things, but the argument becomes almost two-way as a character piece.
Yeah.
And it's just a character piece. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of. I sent you a message yesterday while I was watching it because I was about halfway through.
Yeah, that was the best message. I was like, I just finished my pitch and was like, okay, I've got something, and you texted back, "Yo, this movie sucks balls." I think is what you.
Yeah, I think that was what I said. Yeah. I was. Yeah. What I meant to say by that was I'm not a fan. Okay, well, here's an interesting thing about it though. I did feel like in the last 20 minutes, it oddly not redeemed itself entirely. I still think it's.
You mean with like the whole murder
way
plot?
Too convenient. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That was really interesting.
I thought that was really like I had zoned out. I had completely checked out by that point. I was admittedly, when I messaged you, I was just skipping.
Of course.
But when it got to that point, I went, oh, okay, where is this going? This is interesting again. So I feel like there was just this really, and then how it resolves itself is a little convenient. Like, oh, the daughter, what was her name again? The Evan Rachel Wood's character. Lainey. So Lainey, she's like, because she's the one who uses computers.
She's like able to undo. Oh my God, like a couple of keystrokes and all of a sudden she's back. I actually think it would have been more interesting if Victor had in fact deleted Simone. And then and then
Victor, that's the Al Pacino character, right?
Victor Taransky had deleted Simone and then all of a sudden was accused of murder. And then the police had like got a subpoena or whatever, gone into the studio, realized that Simone was in fact just a computer program, But the fact that Victor had deleted her was still tantamount to murder. And so instead of revealing that Simone was in fact artificial and you can't kill something artificial, they hide that fact and continue to persecute Victor because the public will want that kind of justice, even though she wasn't real. So the figure of Simone, even though she wasn't real, she was like, the idea of her was real. And so they continue to persecute Victor, even though, and then it becomes a question like, did he actually kill her? Because like he technically deleted all of her information, and no, she wasn't like an autonomous being. She was controlled by him. But the idea of her, her visage, her appearance, and all that was forever destroyed by Victor. Meaning he did in a way kind of kill her.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I felt like. That was the one thing that I thought was interesting with the whole murder plot, was this idea that he's deleted a program and he's able to explain it, but it's almost that people don't want to believe that she's not real.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it's played in the movie is there's sort of reasonable doubt that he actually maybe killed a real person. But I liked that idea, kind of like what you were saying, but the idea where they wanted, it was more important that they kept the illusion alive, like, because she as a person in this society, this is Simone I'm speaking of, became so central in a way to their culture that the idea of her dying was too much to handle, so they had to basically
cover it up.
So and I liked that too, and that's actually where I thought it was going. So I was a little disappointed when I don't know why I suddenly decided that maybe this movie is actually going somewhere interesting. And then was disappointed when it didn't.
Here's a real problem though. So in the diver scene where he like takes them out to find the trunk full of discs, where the fuck did those discs go?
The sharks ate them.
There's no way. First of all, that's such a plot contrivance.
No,
we can't go back down there. The sharks are there. You're like, that's bullshit. Divers dive with sharks all the time.
Yeah.
And
I also love, and this is another.
But where did the discs go?
The sharks ate them.
No, that's not
I'm telling you, man. Those sharks.
No, that's bullshit. I'm so mad.
I think that's what the movie's trying to lead you to believe, that the sharks ate, I don't know, or they just like, I don't know, they fell out of the trunk in the ocean. Some starfish came and hoarded them and took them back to his little rock.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Some starfish just sitting down there. I'm just imagining Patrick Starr now going like, "Oh, I love you, Simone."
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a SpongeBob spin-off where he does that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I would write that. I would do. That's actually going to be my alternate pitch.
It's just
Simone
SpongeBob.
Is actually it's a SpongeBob episode where they
just
Well, hey there,
discs.
Patrick. What do you think are in these discs? Ah!
SpongeBob.
Anyway, we should get into pitches.
That's pretty good. Oh, wow. Okay, well, actually, I did just want to add a few things that I did like about it. Okay, well, actually, there's just a few things I, in terms of unpacking a little bit more, I did want to get into. I did like that sort of cynical humor at the ironic. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but there were parts that I was genuinely laughing. But it was just because it was so ridiculous. I felt like even though Al Pacino was I could tell watching it that he was not in it.
Yeah, it was.
He was
obvious.
But at the same time, I didn't think he was bad. I still think even when he doesn't care, he does a pretty good job. But this movie, so in terms of going back to things that I think specifically that it suffered from, this movie suffers from people don't talk like that syndrome.
Yes.
Very much in the beginning when he's talking with Al Pacino and Catherine Keener are having their conversation. And she's like, it's all I can't, just watch it. Just if you want to know what I'm talking about, I don't even really care to describe it at this point.
Yeah.
I don't mean to shit on it. It's hard to write dialogue. I'll admit. So I'm trying to be a little more gracious with my criticism.
I will agree with you. I do think for the longest time in this movie, I felt like Evan Rachel Wood, who was like 14 at the time of this filming, was the best actor in the movie. At least her lines felt the least wooden.
Yeah, but that's because everybody in the movie talks like a 14-year-old kid.
Maybe.
So she's the only one.
Yeah.
She's the only one
Whenever
who
it
actually
feels
sounds
natural.
like her character. I felt like the absurdity, it needed to be more leaned into. It's a movie that basically what I felt like, it was a movie that in one sense there's a lot of smart concepts. We talked about this. It just has a really hard time. I think what needed to happen was someone needed to say, okay, do you want to talk about this? Do you want to talk about this? Do you want to talk about this? Pick one thing to focus on and channel that through
and
the
just
story.
make it really work.
Exactly, because in that sense, it just didn't work. And I think that because it just didn't translate itself into a story like that, it came across as preachy, actually. Because this movie, it really dates itself in the way it's skeptical towards technology.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking of another movie that deals, you mentioned the movie Her, but Her is not actually like a movie about skepticism towards technology. It's really a movie about relationships.
Absolutely.
And what it means to be in love. And that's why it works.
Yeah.
It's not about the technology. And I feel like with this, it was trying to make a statement of, oh, what's real, what isn't real? Because that was kind of a thing. If you look at movies at the time, that does seem to be a hot topic with the advent of virtual, filmmaking and CG.
Yeah.
Like The Matrix was obviously one example. Fight Club kind of gets into that as well. American Beauty, deals with that as a theme. I mean, it's definitely, I don't know if I'm reading into this, but that's definitely something that comes up a lot in movies around like kind of mid 90s to like mid 2000s there.
Yeah.
But with this movie, there's this real skepticism around technology, and it's like all bad.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it was preachy. And so I feel like in terms of it, movies that at least deal with it, we mentioned Her as one that, is able to do it really well. There were two reviews I also read that I felt like really summed up pretty well, actually, like kind of did a good job of pinpointing some things with it. One was Peter Travers from Rolling Stone said, gets this Hollywood satire off to a rousing start, but the middle flattens despite Pacino firing on all cylinders. I don't know if I agree with that. But then the end just nosedives into something silly and worse, sentimental. And then the other one, Hank Sarton from the Chicago Reader said, the film never quite achieves the sharp-edged satire demands, largely because director Andrew Niccol, who was so good at managing tone in Gattaca, can't decide whether to go with nasty or hilariously farcical. And I think that's actually true, because it's like, there's something that is farcical about it, but there's also something that's kind of, there's like an ironic tone too, so there's this thing in tone that's not quite... It's like it's trying to be a satire and also trying to be kind of a harsh criticism at the same time, but they just don't quite fit.
Yeah.
And I think it really just connects back to the fact that it's just not, there's not really that through line in the sense that it's not a focused story.
I will say, but just before we get into pitches, I will say that the one good thing about this movie is that even though it didn't maybe hit home thematically the way that we wanted it to, it has given us a lot to talk about.
Well, see, that is
something that I think is worth, the fact that we're here going like, well, I wanted this, or this is something I thought about while watching, all says something about the movie itself.
Yeah, exactly. Which is again where I then go like, wait, was this actually a smart movie?
Like, I'm thinking about it.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, pitches. Do you want to go? Sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think in terms of like what we do with Cinemasters, we're trying to make we try to look at it in terms of something that's at least like going back to, I guess, traditional story structure, and what is it that makes something that when you sit down and you leave the theater, you go, yes, I connected with that.
That worked for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I feel like with this, it didn't have that feeling for me.
No, I agree. But there was, I mean, we're talking about it. I'm talking about it. You're talking. I mean, we're also on a show that we do that on. But like, I think if I'd seen this movie anyway, I would have been like, there's stuff to think about there.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the best way, but there's stuff to think about there. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first.
Cool.
I did think about doing the whole. I did think of pulling what I did with the Adjustment Bureau and make it like, oh, this was all fake. I thought about it and I was like, I did that already. I got to do something else. So I took it in a slightly different direction. Essentially, it's the same starting point. He's a director. What I wanted to change though was he's actually revered for his work. Like he's actually got a lot of respect, but he's constantly dissatisfied because it's not as perfect as he wanted it to be. So it's a personal dissatisfaction with his own work. He's doing another film and he's clashing with this actress and they're not getting along, and so the studio basically, the actress wins in the day, and so he gets fired and he gets pulled off of this film. However, he's allowed to take, the film gets shelved, but he's allowed to take the reels with him if he wants to finance it himself. So he's got all these reels of film for a movie that he hasn't finished making, but it's like his passion project, and he's not sure what to do. And someone reaches out to him out of the blue. And this is the character, Hank.
You mean Hal?
So there's
Hal.
Hal?
Is it not Hal? Is it Hank?
I can't remember. The guy who in the movie shows up with, who's like one eye.
I think, yeah. I think I called him, well, hold on, I'll look it up. Keep going.
Okay, so whatever. So we'll call him Hal in this case. I'm not too attached to the name. Reaches out to him and says like, oh, like I'm your old VFX guy, and we're doing something that's really cool. Oh, my version still takes place like right at the early 2000s. So CG is still kind of just making its way in to being used. Like Lord of the Rings would have just come out. So anyway, this guy and he's like, look, we've got this, like I'm doing a visual effects company and we've got all this cool equipment, but we're doing something that's very different. And I want to show it to you. So Victor goes to this film studio and he sees what they're making, and they're making this, like these virtual actors. And he realizes like, oh, I can make the movie I want to make. I can just film all the bits with this actress. I can just replace her with this virtual character. So that's what he does, and they make the movie, and it goes on to become a huge success.
You were right, it is Hank. Sorry. I am listening, but you were right, it is Hank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, funny. Okay. Well, he's Hal now. So they release the movie, and at first they're like, they think they want to actually let the world know about this machine they've created, but Victor convinces them like, actually, no. Let's see if we can convince people. Let's not tell people that this is a computer. Let's tell them that this is real, and see if they buy it. And so they do that, and the movie comes out, and it's a huge success, and people believe that this actress is a real person. At this point, Hank is like, okay, well, this is cool. Hank is like, this is cool, like, but I want to, now we should let the cat out of the bag, because this will be, because it's so real, people will want to hire us for our services.
Yeah.
But Victor goes, no, let's just keep the lie alive and make her like she's a real person. So then what ends up happening is they then start creating this virtual Simone, but then they buy her a house, and then they get her TV interviews, kind of like the way they do in the movie where it's remotely, but they make it look like she's a real person.
Yeah.
And all the while they're doing this, Hank thinks that they're going, like at some point they're gonna release that she's not real. But as they get more and more into it, Victor gets more and more obsessed with creating this illusion of Simone being a real person, to the point where he creates another actor. This is Hal. Yeah. So they introduce another actor named Hal, and then they create this whole love story between the two of them. That they'll go. There's a scene where someone's going and buying groceries, and they look on the gossip magazines, and there's this whole thing of Simone is now with this new upcoming star, Hal St. Clair. And as they as they keep building this, what they end up doing is they create more and more characters and more fake people. And so at a certain point, Hank's becoming impatient because he wants to reveal that they've been able to create all these things. They've been able to create these entire worlds of characters that are now like, and they've got like a TV show running, but it's like a reality TV show, but none of it's
real. Oh my god, that's so clever.
So eventually what happens is Hank he's just had enough, and so he goes to someone in the media, like he goes to, and he's like, I'm just gonna let them know. And so he goes and he starts telling people that Simone isn't real, none of this is real, but nobody believes him.
Yeah.
And Simone sues him for defamation.
Holy shit.
And he loses his job and he loses everything to this fake person that was created by their company. Anyway, so Hank is basically, so by this point, like the movie starts off where Victor is the main character, but he kind of ends up becoming the villain.
The villain, yeah.
Like, and so the whole idea is that it's all about, he's like a control freak.
Yeah.
But it goes from him just wanting to make perfect movies to like control reality itself.
Yeah.
See, like the ultimate film director.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like
to an extreme.
Like the way he becomes I'm sorry for interrupting, but the way he doesn't want to let the cat out of the bag, because the most real movie you could ever make is not a movie at all. It's like somehow he's making an artificial reality that is reality that's artificial. That's the realest movie.
Exactly. So that's where I'll admit, I borrowed a little bit from, I mentioned Synecdoche, New York before. I did take that a little bit into this, because that's kind of where that goes. But that doesn't deal with artificial intelligence. So this sort of takes that, but deals with it in a film virtual reality sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Hank has hit rock bottom. He goes to, like, he's being sued by this fake person, and basically, like, by this point, what's happened is Simone, like, they make a movie, like they make a movie with all these fake casts, with all this, like, in this fake town that doesn't exist. And they go and they make this movie, and it like wins the Academy Awards, and there's this ceremony. But the thing is, Hank is watching it on TV, and there's actually like Victor, and there's actually Simone, like they're actually there at the Academy Awards, and he's like, and he's at a bar watching this, and everybody is cheering when Simone wins, and he's like, how is this happening? Like, this is fake. Like, there's no way that this is actually real. Like, something, like they've faked it all. So he tries telling people this, but no one will believe him, because everyone thinks he's just crazy. So he basically decides that now what he's got to do is he's got to destroy the thing. He's actually got to destroy Simone, and the way he's going to do it is he's going to sneak into, I called it Movie Corp because I couldn't come up with a name for a company, but he's going to sneak in. He's going to blow up the server, and he's going to have it all just be destroyed. So he goes. He breaks in, he gets there, and he finds that the building is empty. There's actually nothing there, and there's just a TV screen. And when he gets in the building and he watches the TV screen, it's a video of himself that shows up. And it's his confession. It's his like confession. It's a suicide tape.
Oh shit.
It's a deep fake of
himself using the like Sim 1. Oh shit.
Exactly.
Oh shit.
And then a video of Victor shows up and says, so I'm actually like, Simone doesn't like, none of this is here. None of this is actually like, it's actually what you don't realize. What you've created, Hank, is you've created something that's gone into, it's like, it's now taken over the world. Like it's not contained to one server anymore. It's all over, like it's out there. You can't contain it, but I can't allow you to. But the only way we can actually create that illusion is if you actually remove any reasonable doubt. So if you blow up this place, then no one can say that that's the server, that it's fake. And we can continue to have this lie going. And then at that point, Hank is inside, and the whole building explodes. Oh, and it's also revealed like the whole Academy Awards ceremony was also faked.
Oh, okay.
Like everything, like basically by this point, it's sort of the whole border between real and fiction has been completely
compromised.
crossed.
Yeah.
And so it's like everything that you're seeing on TV, that he's seeing on TV, could have been faked. Like every world event
yeah.
could have actually been been created.
My question for you is the simulation because like all media is now faked, or is it like the simulation has somehow like subsumed reality? So like Hank, when he blows himself up, is actually in the simulation.
Well, that's kind of, I didn't want to quite lead. I wanted to leave that open as a possibility, maybe. So I'll accept that maybe the ending could be a little bit more concrete in terms of where I go with it. But the one thing the point I was trying to get to is that Victor himself, like the real Victor as we would know him, is no longer exists.
Yeah.
But Victor has also become so like all of the characters, all of the people who were also creating this thing are now also virtual creations.
Yeah.
So the virtual has essentially just taken over the real world. So the final sequence is him blowing up this facility, and then it's just shots of empty places.
Yeah.
With the sounds of what was there originally.
Oh, that's really cool.
And that's the end of the movie.
That's really cool. I like the idea. In my mind, I like the idea of like somehow the virtual has become reality. Like not just like it's become so faked. Like somehow they've managed to make it so that reality, like Simone is real because the virtual has become real. Like anyone who was real is now part of the virtual, and the virtual is now part of the real. And we're getting into some Matrix territory here, but
exactly.
Because then when it's like what is real and what isn't, and I really like that idea. I also really like the idea of in one part you were saying like there's these fake celebrities having a reality television show, except it's all fake. So like I like that idea because it's like people think reality television shows are real, but they're not. They're faked. So it's like let's have a bunch of like in your version, it's like let's have a bunch of fake people make a real television show that's fake. That's fake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you just take that to an absolute extreme where it's like reality itself has been taken over by something that's fake with the purpose of emulating something that's real.
Oh, that's some Baudrillard shit. That's like what are you because it becomes like what are you emulating in your movie, in your art? What are you emulating when the thing you're emulating has become the thing you're emulating?
Exactly. And that's where Charlie Kaufman goes in Synecdoche, New York. He goes like basically the Philip Seymour Hoffman character in that movie recreates the entire city of New York in his own hangar, and he creates a theater he gets to the point where he wants to recreate reality, so he literally recreates reality in this like a smaller version of it. But then there's because his theater is in New York, there's a smaller version of his theater that's recreating the reality inside the theater.
And you could literally just go Turtles all the way down, right? Like that's why people think we're in a simulation, right? Every time we go a step down, you create the potentiality for another simulation.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I really like that. Like, what are you? And just in terms of art, though, I'll say it again. Like, what are you? If the virtual becomes real, right? Then he, Victor's character is trying to create the perfect simulation of the real, and he does such a good job that the simulation, his virtual experiment, Simulation 1, becomes the real. And then he's no longer emulating anything. He has created it. There's nothing for him to reference.
Exactly.
Yeah. So is he making art or is he making reality? The ultimate movie, but also no longer art.
Exactly.
Almost Truman Show-esque, but from the other side.
Exactly. So what's so interesting, though, I think the guy who wrote and directed this actually wrote The Truman Show.
Yeah. I feel like your version is like, what if we did The Truman Show, but from the other point of view? So instead of from Truman's point of view, we're doing it from the... Except
some like the Ed Harris character.
Yeah. Except your characters aren't self-aware potentially.
No.
I guess they become self-aware.
Yeah. So one of them does. Yeah. So and the other thing I liked about this was it starts off where the main character kind of becomes the villain, and then it becomes someone else trying to stop him at a certain point.
Yeah. That's crazy. I went in a completely different direction. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, okay,
so
yeah.
I tried to
excited
stick
hear
close to
yours.
the film, but I did rewrite a lot of it. So mine gets a little.
Okay.
You'll have to stick with me because I was like, I don't know how to get around some of these. But so the film begins
Right.
on set where we see the director. It's just a movie scene, and the director calls cut, and it's Victor Taransky comes out, and he begins to argue over some acting choices with the lead actress Nicola. Just from context, we can see that Victor's trying to like push her to get a certain performance out of her, but she's not getting it. So we sort of see his point of view. But when she asks what it is that he wants and he can't seem to answer her, and finally he just like loses it, like just yells at her in front of everyone, and she's just like, no, I'm walking. So she claims that he's way too difficult to work with, and so the studio execs try to smooth things over with Nicola as her name, so they can finish the film. So they come to an agreement. And Victor is like, well, I'm furious. I can't believe she would like publicly come out and say all those things about me, even though they're true. But he's like, yo, the studio will back me up. I'm motherfucking Victor Taransky, right? Like I made a movie 10 years ago called The Golden Hour, which won a few awards and got me some big recognition. But he hasn't really done anything since. But so the Golden Hour got him some big recognition, and everyone wants to or did want to work with Victor Taransky. But as it turns out, the studio comes back and they go, well, this isn't the first time this has happened where we've had actors and actresses complain about you. And we don't want to lose the star power of Nicola, and we don't want to like have to reshoot everything if she does decide to walk and takes her contract with her. So we've decided that we're not going to pay for that, and we're just going to replace you as director. So the studio basically says like, this is what you'll still get a writing credit, but we're going to replace you as director so we don't have to start over if Nicola walks, because she basically said it's me or him. So a few days later, the studio is basically like, okay, we've decided on a new director, and they come to see the exec. I'm imagining the executive is played by Jim Rash, because Jim Rash was in the movie, and I really like Jim Rash.
Yeah.
So
I like
it's
that.
it's not his ex-wife. That's the because I thought that was dumb. So
Catherine Keener. Yeah.
So instead, Jim Rash sits down with him and says, we found a new director, and actually something is really interesting has happened. This director has decided that they really like your creative vision on the film, and they want to continue with it. They want to actually bring you on as a creative consultant, so you'd still be attached to the film, just not in quite as much of a directorial role, and of course you're not allowed to interact with Nicola. And Victor's like, oh, okay, all right, this sounds pretty good. Who's the director? And the Jim Rash character, the exec says, well, it's Elaine Christian, who, and Victor's like, so Elaine Christian is she was a former successful actress and has now turned into a director, and also happens to be, so the execs want to bring in more female directors, because of course they do, and they think that she's actually a really good choice, but she happens to be Victor's ex-wife.
Oh, okay.
And he's like,
nice. Okay, got
he's
it.
like, I don't have a problem with working together because she's female, or even my ideas. I can't believe you would pick an ex-actor and my ex-wife to try and do what I'm trying to do here. She's an actor. She won't understand the point of view from a director. And the exec's like, well, she's already got like a couple films under her belt. She's trying to do something more serious. Nicola really approves of her. We think it's a good idea. We don't really need your consent. We just wanted you to be involved potentially. And so did she. And Victor's like, no, fuck you. I'm not doing that. So that doesn't work. Basically, the studio exec says, okay, we understand that you're upset, and we know you're like Victor Taransky. You're a big name. We're going to offer you a consolation. We've read a script that you wrote for a while back. That's like, you just wrote a script for us that was a basic summer romance flick called, what did I call it? Hold Me Close. And the script is good. We'll give you the green light on the condition that like there's no threats this time. Like, you have to deal with the actors, nothing inappropriate. But we'll give you the green light. You can go ahead and do it. If you can do this, we'll give you back your kind of prestige. Like, you do this one for us, you can do one for you, right? But you got to make it work, Victor.
Got it.
So Victor's like, okay, whatever. It turns out that Victor is really unable to get any big names to work on his, like, big name actors to work on his film because of his reputation. So anytime he tries to do a casting, he manages to put together a small cast, but he feels like he's missing something. So while he's talking with a casting agency, he starts to get annoyed because he can't explain what he's looking for in his lead actress, and he can't find it. But eventually, he comes across a casting agent named Hank. And he basically says, Mr. Taransky, what do you want to see? Because we have the acting technology that we can give you anything you want. And he's like, what do you mean acting technology? So the next day, Victor meets with Hank and is shown a computer system that allows him to create a virtual computer-created actor that he can program and act out anything that he wants them to do and then digitally alter it so it's perfect. And Victor is like, okay, all right, this seems pretty good. So he buys the rights to the Simulation 1 engine and begins to make his movie. And he creates Simone. So about a year later, Victor's movie is released in theaters, and people are like, whoa, have you seen Hold Me Close? This actress, Simone, is unreal. And the movie's, it's a summer romance. The movie wasn't expected to do that well. Mm-hmm. And people are like, yo, Victor Taransky is motherfucking back. This movie is so profound, and it's still like a romance, and that Simone is just amazing as an actress. So the studio was like, yo, this movie's blowing up. Way to go, Victor. They push for publicity, and they want Simone to appear on talk shows. And so Victor's like, okay, I didn't really expect this to happen. So he starts setting up online talk shows like we see in the actual movie. And he puts Simone on the shows, and the fans love her. Hold Me Close is blowing up, and so is Victor because, he thought the movie was kind of schmaltzy. So he's like, I don't get it. Like, I just made a romance movie, and it didn't have any big ideas and wasn't as ambitious as like what I did with The Golden Hour, or the movie that I got kicked off, which was called Sunrise to Sunset. So Victor begins writing a new script. He's like, I'm back in this. The studio's going to give me mine now because I did one for them. He started writing a movie called Eternity Forever.
I still love that title.
It's so bad. He thinks it might be the best thing he's ever written. But in the meantime, other directors are calling to see if they can cast Simone. And they're like, oh, we can cast you in something more mature, something more demanding. Something that like will show off your real acting prowess than just a summer romance. And Victor is like, okay, I need to keep Simone's appearances up and still try to convince the studio to work to have Eternity Forever because I want Simone to star in that because then I don't have to yell at actors, right? That's his saving grace. But he needs to keep it up that she's real to basically have the studio get behind him. At least that's what he thinks. But the studio doesn't seem like super interested in anything Victor has to write currently. They're like, okay, like Eternity Forever seems really, really great, but like we want you to promote the Hold Me Close just for now. Like we'll get to Eternity Forever. But like you're just throwing this at us out of nowhere. So we've only just looked at it. So Simone gets an offer to do some modeling, and she's asked to do some like endorsing on fashion products and perfumes and stuff like that. And so meanwhile, like at the same time, Victor is still unsure. The studio is still unsure about Victor's script and his attitudes in public. His appearances he seems even more run down than usual. Like they're like, dude, you gotta like change clothes. You gotta like, you're starting to scare us a little bit. Just because he's like so worn down. So they're like, we know you can get through a movie like Hold Me Close, but like, will you be able to deal with a production of Eternity Forever? And he's like, yeah, I can do it. And so they're like, well, we hope there's no issues. So Victor chooses to work on they're basically like, he's like, I'll work on whatever you give me. I just want Eternity Forever. So they're like, fine, we'll greenlight Eternity Forever, but you have to direct this other movie called Acacia. And it's like more serious. And so he also has Simone publicly attach herself to the film, to the lead role as this actress named Acacia, or the character named Acacia. And so all of a sudden the studio is like, oh, Simone's publicly attached to it, and everyone's freaking out about this movie. So meanwhile, the studio again thinks that they can push hard enough to get Hold Me Close nominated, which would do a lot for both Victor and Simone's career. And because romantic movies are rarely ever get that kind of prestige at the Academies. So they really push Simone to do the circuit. And so now Victor is like caught between trying to make Acacia work and also like getting Simone to push for the award season. But he's like, this is the best thing ever because Simone and Hold Me Close would be against his former movie and ex-wife called Sunset to Sunrise. And Simone actually wins the awards, and Victor is like, fuck you, because now I can prove like how good I am as a director. But at the award ceremony, Victor is weirded out because he doesn't remember recording or programming some of the things that Simone says. He's like, what?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'll just check that. He checks her software and he finds no malfunctions. He finds her working perfectly fine, but he even double checks. He's like, did I program her to say those things? And he looks on the program and he's like, yeah, I must have, because they're all there, but like, I don't remember doing that. That's weird. Like, so during the editing process for Acacia, Victor sees Simone acting in ways he never told her to do. So there's emphasis in weird places. The blocking is different and it's programmed. He's like, I didn't tell you to do any of this, but he's like, this is really good, like better than I remember it being. And he's again under the studio pressure, and so he releases the movie. So and then Victor begins having Simone do publicity for the film, but the hosts for the talk shows and whatnot and interviews go off script, but Simone is able to answer, and Victor is like, what the fuck? So Acacia comes out, and the audience reaction to Acacia is mixed. Critics and audiences both think that the movie is a bit of a mess, but that Simone's acting was superb. And Victor is like, wow, I'm really... So in an interview, Simone talks about her life, who she is, and places that she's been and where she grew up in a way that Victor is like, I have never been there. How would I know that?
Right.
There's no way I could even know that. This isn't me. And Victor is now convinced that Simone might be becoming aware, like an AI. So he visits Hank, who sold him the software, and Hank is like, there's no way. Like, there's ways we can figure out if she's artificial. Let's do the Turing test. So Victor makes her take the Turing test, and Simone passes. And Victor is now like, holy shit, I have an artificial intelligent actor. I could tell the world about Simone. Like, that she's AI. But he's also like, what's the morality of using her if she's artificially intelligent? But he decides that an AI still has no rights, and he continues to use her.
Oh, okay. I like where this is going.
So Victor once again pushes for the script for Eternity.
That's creepy. Oh.
He once again pushes for the script for Eternity Forever, which he still believes is his best work. And the studio was like, okay, Acacia was only saved really by Simone's acting. So they're like, okay, we'll give you the green light. You just need to smarten up a bit, and like, dude, you've been wearing the same tie for weeks, right? Like, just the same tie. You need to smarten up, dude. You're running yourself into the ground. We know your work is important, but okay, you can have the green light. Meanwhile, without consulting Victor, Simone signs on to a big budget fantasy movie. And Victor is like, whoa, like, how are we going to make this work? Like, I wanted you to work on Eternity Forever. And she's like, no, I want to work. She's now like talking with him. She's like, I want to do this fantasy movie. And all of a sudden, some controversy arrives when Simone doesn't show up on set to the fantasy movie. People begin to become suspicious. They start asking Victor, why is she only working for you? Where is this happening? They start asking about the casting agency, and Victor is worried that they will ask Hank who Simone is. And he's like, okay, we can make this fantasy movie work, but you need to tell me, like, I need to know about your schedule so I can like work it out with people. And Simone is worried too. Victor says, I'll go talk to Hank. I'll pay him off, and that'll stop him from blabbing. And Simone is like, okay, that might not work. AI is a way bigger deal than just acting. If he says something, our whole thing is screwed. Like, we can no longer keep working this way. He's going to take the credit, and I'm not going to be an actress. So she implies that the payoff won't be enough. So Victor goes to speak with Hank and expresses, with the express person I'm paying him off. But when Hank gets there, when Victor gets to Hank's office, Hank's already been murdered.
Whoa.
And so Victor calls the police, and it turns out that someone had murdered Hank earlier that night. And Victor is alarmed. He's like, I think that might have been Simone. But like, there's no way, because she doesn't have a body. So he talks to Simone. He returns to the computer, and she's basically like, no, there's no way I could have done that because I don't have a body. Like, it couldn't have been me. And so Victor is now a complete mess. He's working hard to get his script ready to start production, but he's constantly torn between that and getting Simone to film her fantasy movie remotely while having to like do all this. He also doesn't trust her anymore, and he like searches something up to see if he can find out like what happened, and he realizes that what Simone implied is that she basically called up a fan who was so fanatical that the fan would do anything for her, and then convinced that fan to kill Hank. But it's all circumstantial. Like Victor has no evidence. It's all circumstantial, but he doesn't trust her at all. Finally, while he's working with one of the actresses that was a young actress who was supposed to be in the role that he wrote for Simone. He's like, this isn't working, and he yells at her and like publicly just reams her out, and then he has a panic attack. So Victor is recovering at his own home a couple days later. He opens a get well card from Simone explaining that she's like, oh, I really hope that you get better and that I've finished shooting the fantasy film. Somehow, without him, she's finished shooting this film. And she can't wait to hear about the other project Victor gets to work on next. But he's interrupted by a knock on the door. The studio exec, played by Jim Rash, comes in and says, how are you doing? And Victor's like, well, I'm getting better. And he basically lays it out. He says, your mental health and your public displays were always a liability. And we know you love what you've done, but like, we're going to take Eternity Forever from you and give it to another director. We love what you've done with it. You'll still get a writing credit. We'll still attach you, but we're going to give it to a new director. And that's what's best for you so you can recover. And it's what's best for us because we need to distance ourselves from your toxic behavior. So Victor is heartbroken. He turns on the TV and it's revealed that after his well-documented betraying of this young actress, the studio offered his movie to none other than Simone.
Oh, bam.
So Simone then comes on screen and explains that when she heard the news of her friend and the person who like discovered her, Victor, she was like, I want to complete his vision. So she smiles through the TV as though smiling directly at Victor. Like, I'm going to finish your movie. And Victor watches as the actress basically takes over his greatest work. Victor goes downstairs to the cellar to find some wine. He turns on the light and he sees in his basement a replica of the Simone computer terminal playing what was just on the TV screen that he just watched. And there's the tie he had been wearing for weeks is covered with blood on his desk. And that's the end of the movie.
Oh, I like it.
So the whole, I know that was a lot, but I had to rewrite a lot. And the whole idea is like, I'm basically trying to show like that Victor is basically slowly going nuts.
Yeah.
And the goal here is to leave it up in the air. Is Victor playing both himself and Simone, or is she actually artificially intelligent?
Yeah, exactly.
And the fan that she called up to that she called up to kill Hal was actually him.
And
he doesn't know. He's like become obsessed.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Ooh. Oh, I like that. Yeah. I like that take.
It's not my best. Good. It's not my best pitch, but it's like simply because it's not a happy ending, and I'm a sucker for a happy ending. But it might be my smartest pitch.
I think it's one of your better. I actually do think it's one of your better ones. Yeah.
I almost went just as
I was really engaged, and I thought it tracked well, and I thought the ending was well earned.
Yeah.
I felt like psychologically, like it all. For him, it all clicked. It all made sense, especially when you're dealing with something kind of like the Dostoevskian thing, where the character gets slowly more and more crazy.
Exactly.
And then they're like, "Am I going crazy?" But then you're reading it and you're like, "What are they going crazy?" I don't know. Like they actually could be saying.
Yeah. Or like this whole artificial intelligence. Like, is Simone artificially intelligent, or like is this happening? I wanted to get like crazy that way. I will say that I almost decided, because this film felt so fake, that I almost decided to pull like the same kind of thing that I did on Zardoz, which was make the whole thing fake. Right. Like it's all being filmed, like I did with Zardoz, how it turned out to be like a film within a film within a film. Yeah. But I really like this pitch. I think this pitch works really well. And
it's excellent.
Yeah. Any last minute thoughts about Simone?
No. I feel like we covered it pretty well.
What a strange movie that was kind of, I mean, it wasn't great, but at the same time, we had lots to talk about, which in some ways is kind of the point of art.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far as to call it art, but...
Well, all art is art, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah, there you go. That's okay. You know what? And I wouldn't disagree with that either. So Simone is its own kind of art.
Yeah. Where can people
Take it or leave it.
Where can people find you?
I've got a website, www.nathanieldraper.com or letterboxed at DraperNate.
Yeah, you can find my band Robot Philosopher anywhere you listen to dope music, and you can find awesome episodes of Cinemasters as well as This Is a Thing, the long and the short of it, and other really cool things we got going on here right here on Cinemasters Ultimate Timeline. Stay safe out there, people. That was dope.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Peace.